Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel, to potentially the worst timed start of a stream of all time. Because just as this time when I always have running before a stream was running down, rest in peace, the Queen, Her Majesty Elizabeth II, has unfortunately passed away. Yeah, obviously I'm not English, so yeah, don't be mad at me. But yeah, like that could not have been worse. I was talking to people throughout the day, like, will people have a go at me if I stream? Like, I'm not English. It's not my monarch. But the fact that it's literally announced as the timer's going down is very unfortunate. But yes, rest in peace. Who knows whether there's going to be football this weekend? Is that the important topic now? Let's not get into it too much. But who knows whether there will be any football to watch this weekend or not. I have no idea. But I am joined, as you can see already, by Alex, Euro Expert. We will also be joined by a couple of other people as this stream continues to talk about the fact that Chelsea have officially appointed Graham Potter as their new manager to replace the sacked Thomas Tuchel. Now, obviously, Alex, if you choose to say anything to sound things, you can. If not, you're like, obviously no problem. But before I go into like a bit of like rambling the news off, what was your reaction to everything that has happened, well, yesterday and now today, when it basically was, well, not officially yet yesterday, but everyone kind of knew that it would be Graham Potter to succeed Thomas Tuchel. How has an outsider like seen that and taken that?
Yeah, I'll answer that. I will just say as well, apologies for laughing right at the start to the people watching, as Laurenz said. That is because me and Laurenz have gone back and forth today, and he said, I don't know whether to stream. I said, no, do it at 6:30 because they'll probably announce it at 6. And I think it was like a millisecond after you hit launch that I looked at my phone and I got the notification. That is unbelievable. Rest in peace to the Queen. That is incredible. Hope everyone's dealing with it well. So let's talk Chelsea and distract from that terrible news. And yes, the Tuchel stuff. I was quite vocal about it. I feel really conflicted now that Potter's arrived. I'll walk you through this stream, but I will say my immediate reaction was horror. I know Tuchel's had a bad start to the year, but it felt so cruel, so unneeded, so weird that Chelsea spent so much money backing him in his name. What seemed like the owners were completely on board. The only message I got from Chelsea was Tuchel is the man. We are backing him. This is for the long haul. And not even a week after the transfer window shuts, he's gone. And my logic was straight away, if you're going to sack him because you don't like him, do it in the window so you can sign players for a manager that you actually want, or wait till the end of the season because you've committed now and you've got to see what he can do with the players he got. Is your best option. So, yeah, my first reaction was, this is a crazy decision, that something horrible must have gone down behind the scenes, or the American owners just, I don't know, they've got a bit too cocky.
Sorry, bro. I just had to laugh at this comment. See, usually we get the Ed Sheeran one, and now we've got the Ron Weasley one. But hey, maybe your best mate of our manager. Who knows, mate? Who knows? Sorry, go on. I just had to chuckle.
No, yeah, I guess I'll say now that Potter's arrived, and we'll talk about him more. And I thought we'll talk more about Tuchel because his reign, I guess, is a successful one. But now I am conflicted because on one hand, all those emotions remain about Tuchel. I mean, yeah, maybe I'm a little biased because I was sitting on this channel 2.5 years ago when the Euro Access side of me blew up because I was one of the few people who'd watched Tuchel in France. So I was really excited when he got signed for Chelsea. I thought, wow, this is that's I've got an attachment to that. So now he's gone. I guess I felt a bit like annoyed. And on the other hand, from Todd Boehly, if you're treating it like a business, he's made a cruel business decision that probably for results is the best. It just feels a little inhumane. But if it gets Chelsea doing better, which it probably will, it's really hard to argue against it.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Like, obviously, we'll get into a little bit more detail in a minute in terms of what kind of has come out in the aftermath of Thomas Tuchel's sacking. Obviously, we were streaming for 2.5 hours yesterday, but there's more and more has been revealed or come out since then. Whether it's like toxic training ground stuff, whether it's splitting team meetings into two of players that want to stay and players that want to leave. But then when you come to the first game against Everton, you put some of the players that were in the team meeting for the players that want to stay, put them on the bench or on the stand, but put some players that everyone knows, everyone in the club knew wanted to leave, in the starting 11 or in the squad, that can't exactly lead to a good dressing room like dynamic, can it? Like that has to be like that can't exactly be good, right? But then again, like, is that true? There's also been things like that Thomas Tuchel hasn't spoken to any player one-on-one in a year. Well, I'm like, what? That would be mental if that's true. Like, it's crazy. Also, that he couldn't be bothered with like a lot of the transfer dealings that he had to do with Todd Boehly, so he always sent his agent there. I'm like, yeah, but what? I'm just so confused because, like you, like, as much as I had a lot of things to criticize for Thomas Tuchel for during pre-season and also at the start of the season and maybe even towards the end of last season. I mean, you had your own type of attachment. Obviously, Chelsea fans had our attachment, winning us the second Champions League trophy in our history. And especially from where we were, like, it wasn't easy for a lot of Chelsea fans to get over the fact that we sacked Frank Lampard. Like, obviously, Chelsea fans were very attached to Frank Lampard, probably less so as a manager than as a player, of course, but he was still here and he was kind of leading us. Do you know what I mean? And then we sacked him and we got Thomas Tuchel. And a lot of people doubted that we would find someone that we would feel like understands what this is about. And a lot of people felt that that was the case with Thomas Tuchel. Obviously, with the sanctions earlier this year, he was like, no, I'm sticking around. You know, if I have to, I'll drive a 7-seater. You know, if we can't fly to games, I'll take a bus to games. Which obviously Chelsea fans greatly appreciated. And as we should. Now, I will also say how many managers would have just walked, because that would just cost you your own payout. So would you really do that? I don't know. But how he handled the whole situation in terms of being made the PR face of the club, when Marina Granovskaya didn't say anything, Petr Cech didn't say anything, Bruce Buck didn't say anything. It was only ever Thomas Tuchel that had to face the media, had to answer all these questions, even about war. Like, when you're like, the guy is not qualified to talk about these things. The guy should not be asked about these things. It's like when during the pandemic, all the managers were constantly talked about COVID things. And you're like, well, they're not the doctors or scientists or whatever they are. They're not even politicians who at least can make rules, even if they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I made a video. My only sort of response to the Tuchel thing so far is because I know there's arguments on both sides, especially how well he was doing at the moment and how much he's achieved in the job. Have Chelsea got worse as he's been there, but then he's reached 2 domestic cup finals. And I made a video yesterday. I just kind of ran through all the things he's dealt with just in 2022. And he's dealt with Lukaku, a striker who didn't want to play there. Lukaku, a striker who didn't want to move. I mean, on the pitch, not just in the club. He's dealt with...
He wanted to move clubs.
Oh, yeah. He wanted to move clubs. He didn't want to move away from the centre circle.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's dealt with going to the Middle East in the middle of the season to compete in the Club World Cup. He's dealt with going to 2 domestic cup finals, 2 penalty shootouts, losing them on both, which effectively is the least control you can have over a football match as a manager that you possibly can. Dealt with, like you said, the club pretty much imploding on itself and being threatened with extinction and being the only person who could really face up to it. Then dealing with a new ownership coming in. Then dealing with all the infrastructure that was around him in Granovskaya and Cech as well, quitting. Then being sort of handed responsibility over transfers and things like that. Or with like Kante being injured throughout the season. And I ended it by saying, like, look, he hasn't started the season great, but good thing he's got all these players in now, last couple of weeks in the window. He's got time to work with them. Oh, no, he's gone. So it really has been... this is what I'd say, like, I think you're going to say the same thing pretty much. To anyone who's saying that Tuchel is a complete failure or he's a terrible coach, he's made Chelsea worse, I think you've got to understand that I can't remember a manager having it harder than Thomas Tuchel has had in 2022. I think you do really well to name anyone who's had a harder set of circumstances.
I do agree. It's a tough one for me because, and I was speaking to Pice about this earlier, and I'm like, I've kind of come to the conclusion where I'm like, with everything that happened, that forced us into selling the club, getting new ownership, getting new people in at the club, Marina leaving, Petr Cech leaving. Now, Petr didn't have to leave, but it was all kind of a domino effect from, basically Putin invading Ukraine, essentially. Maybe, even though we didn't accept it or didn't necessarily see it coming, maybe Tuchel leaving was also one of those domino effects that at some point was inevitable. Whether it was now and very early and surprising and shocking to a lot of people, or whether it's in a month or when the World Cup starts and obviously the Premier League is paused, who knows when it would have been. But if the relationship between players and Tuchel, and also Tuchel and Todd Boehly, was the way it is at the moment being reported on, then I kind of feel like it was inevitable, regardless of how great he was or is as a manager. Because if things don't work on the pitch and they're not going to work in the boardroom either, then what hope do you have, really? But obviously, it's just harsh. Like the fact that he literally said the day before he got sacked, because, against Dinamo Zagreb was his 100th game in charge of Chelsea. So he was like, oh, brilliant, 100, like hopefully to another 100 more and another 100 after that. And, he apparently was even of the belief that he kind of had verbally agreed to a contract extension, which was talked about between him and the ownership a few weeks ago. Where I'm like, how do we get to this point? And then there's talk about that we potentially decided upon sacking Thomas Tuchel and looking at who to replace him with already 2 games ago, which would have been after losing to Southampton, which would have been on the 30th of August, meaning before deadline day, meaning before we signed Aubameyang. Where I'm like, Zakaria is maybe a little bit of a different one, wasn't exactly a Thomas Tuchel target as such, but Aubameyang, would you really sign Aubameyang if you didn't have Tuchel? Like, I don't know. It's a weird one. But now we have Graham Potter, and I don't want to dwell too much on Thomas Tuchel. We've sat there for 2.5 hours yesterday, even though some people will hate me now for saying let's not dwell on it. We can't change it now anyways. The guy is unfortunately has left the club. I wish him well. I hope he doesn't end up anywhere else in the Premier League, but just does well anywhere else, basically. But now we have Graham Potter, and it's a very, very, very interesting appointment because I like to call him the English Sarri, not because everything is the same, but because certain similarities are there. Both haven't won anything before coming to Chelsea. Now, I know he won the 2nd and 3rd division in Sweden and also the Swedish Cup, but, it's basically not won anything. They haven't had a club of the stature of Chelsea, even though Napoli is, of course, a huge club. And so Sarri even had that over Graham Potter, if you will. But the fact that he's like so, almost known to have to be like so attacking, stylistically, like brilliant, always like pass, never like punt the ball. A lot of similarities, at least, to Sarri. I'm not saying the same, but a few similarities, right? But how his step from a club like Brighton to a club like Chelsea will go, who knows? It also took him a little while to get Brighton going and to get them to as good as they were towards the end of last season and this season. And there was also a time period last year, I think in April, where in 7 games they scored 1 goal. Where it's like, well, if that happens at Chelsea, he's not going to have fun. But at the same time, what's difficult to judge is how much easier is he going to find implementing what he's going to try to do with significantly better players. Because while we have our problems, we still do have significantly better players than Brighton and Hove Albion, right? So how much quicker will that allow him to implement his ideas and make them work than a Brighton? With another big difference also to mention is, we're in the Champions League. So between now and the World Cup, we're going to play every midweek. We're going to have a game, whether it's Premier League, Champions League, Carabao Cup. Obviously, FA Cup starts after. But there's going to be a game every midweek. So how much time on the training pitch is he even going to have where he realistically is going to be able to deploy his ideas? So that's why it's a very difficult one. But that's why I have what I have you here for, Alex, in a sense, in essence, that's the word. Number one, how do you think that's going to go? And then we'll get into what he is and, what we can expect from him from what we've seen in the past from him, especially at Brighton.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say is, like you said, with the Tuchel sacking, we don't want to dwell on it, but there'll be people who are angry that we aren't dwelling on it. And I'll say, I could go on all day about him. I think he's a fantastic manager. But if once Chelsea got themselves into a situation of, okay, we need a manager, I think Graham Potter is probably the best option they could have made. And I think that is the jarring, almost bright side of quite a shocking moment for Chelsea fans. You're right to say, though, he hasn't won anything and he's quite dedicated to a sort of possession-based style of football. I mean, last season, Brighton was still, even though Brighton finished 10th in the end, they were still the top 5 for possession in the league. Like, they really like to dominate the ball. And as you kind of hinted, I guess comparisons can be drawn with Sarri there, where possession was held, but arguably for possession's sake, depending on who you ask. And I'll talk no further controversy about Sarri, because otherwise half the audience will hate me and the other half will love me. But yeah, I think what will help Graham Potter, and I know we're going to go into it, but what will help him is that you can see his proof over the last 3 years right at home of how good of a coach he is. With Sarri, you could argue that he had fantastic players at his disposal. Like when he left, Insigne didn't become a bad player, neither did Marek Hamšík, neither did Dries Mertens. And when he arrived, they weren't exactly minnows. They were already at Napoli, or majority of them at least. I just briefly got up Brighton's squad from his first season in 1920 to his second, current now. And like you can look at it, and there's Lewis Dunk still starting, Adam Webster still starting, Pascal Gross still in there, Danny Welbeck still in there. Neil Maupay has left now, but what the point is that Brighton have had mediocre players who were, promotion relegation level when Brighton arrived, and when Potter arrived, and we've seen him turn them into players who are able to play in a team that's at the moment challenging for top 6. Can't really argue against that. They've been brilliant this season.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's the encouraging thing about Potter, and think what sets him apart from Sarri. We've seen his proof, and him coming to Chelsea it feels less alien. When Sarri arrived, there would have been people like Roy Jones who would have gone, "Who is this guy? He's won nothing." Whereas Graham Potter, everyone knows how good he is, and they can give him the respect he deserves.
The question is whether they will, because obviously the landscape of the media in the UK has now decided, okay, we will now vilify Chelsea because they sacked Tuchel, even though that's basically what we've been asking them to do for the last 3 years anyway. And now say, Graham Potter should never take this job. He should wait for the England job because, but if he would have gone to an Arsenal, a Liverpool, a Tottenham, everyone's like, Graham Potter, finally an English manager getting the chance. Finally, the English manager is getting the chance. It's being given the chance by the club that probably the English media landscape least expected to be giving him the chance. But seemingly, it is us that's giving him the chance. We also gave him a 5-year contract, which it's a very quick statement. So let's quickly go through the statement that Chelsea came out with. As you can see, sorry?
That's bold. 5 years straight away.
Exactly. Welcome to Chelsea, Graham Potter, as they say. Chelsea Football Club is delighted to welcome Graham Potter as our new head coach, joining us on a 5-year contract to bring his progressive football and innovative coaching to the club. Potter is one of the most exciting coaches in the game, starting his journey in Sweden before bringing his talents to the English game over the past 4 seasons. The 47-year-old is educated to degree level in disciplines beyond sport and has combined these experiences to forge a collaborative, forward-thinking approach while developing, attacking and winning football. That has been in evidence during his time at Brighton and Hove Albion, where he achieved that club's highest ever league finish last season. Along the way, he earned praise for his winning brand of football on the South Coast, while proving flexible in tactics and formations to be a step ahead of opponents. On making the move to Stamford Bridge, Potter said, "I'm incredibly proud and excited to represent Chelsea Football Club, this fantastic football club." Well, Chelsea FC, this fantastic football club. Okay. I'm very excited to be partner with Chelsea's new ownership group and look forward to meeting and working with the exciting group of players and to develop a team and culture that our amazing fans can be proud of. I would also like to place my sincere thanks to Brighton Hove Albion for allowing me this opportunity, and in particular Tony Bloom and all the players, staff and supporters for the continued support during my time at the club. And then we also have a statement by Todd Boehly and Benedict Barley on the signing. Todd Boehly, chairman, said, "We are thrilled to bring Graham to Chelsea. He's a proven coach and an innovator in the Premier League who fits our vision for the club. Not only is he extremely talented on the pitch, he has skills and capabilities that extend beyond the pitch, which will make Chelsea a more successful club. He has had a major impact at his previous clubs, and we look forward to his positive impact at Chelsea. We look forward to supporting him, his coaching team, and the squad in realising their full potential in the coming months and years." Benedict Barley and Jose Feliciano, co-controlling owners, said Graham is a football innovator and winner on the pitch and a leader off the pitch. He has deeply impressed us with his ideas and approach to football. We're thrilled to partner with Graham to build a winning team, one that embodies the culture of collaboration, innovation, teamwork, player development, and a commitment to excellence on and off the pitch. We are fortunate to have Graham and his team as our partners in that journey. Potter will take charge of the team immediately, meaning, well, at the time, that was supposed to mean against Fulham on Saturday. Now, obviously, after, unfortunately, the Queen has passed away, we are not sure whether we will have a game on Saturday. But we will have to wait and see for that one. To make things more exciting, we are joined by Pice. Pice, I'll give you just... Oh, wait, did you say something in here that told me you will not get us involved? All right. You're here. Lewis has also joined. Everyone's joining at the same time. Fantastic news. But before I get to both Lewis and Pice... Sorry, Pice.
Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea. There you go. I will ask Alex another question. From your perspective, as a guy that watches a lot of different kind of football, a guy that's kind of been a little bit of a fan of what Graham
a
Potter
nerd.
is.
You're trying to say? Go for it. A nerd. Yes.
No, not at all. Not trying to say. No. Do you agree? Or do you agree? But do you also see Graham Potter as this revolutionist and this great innovator in football? Now, but maybe should be mentioned, he has a degree in, what is it? I forget the word, but basically
emotional intelligence.
There you go. It's basically man management, but it's called a master's degree in emotional intelligence. Whether that will be of significant impact or not at Chelsea, I don't know. But it seems like that was kind of, if anything, Thomas Tuchel's downfall. Maybe the off the pitch stuff. On the pitch, there's very few people that would say Thomas Tuchel hasn't got everything you need to have. But do you think he is that kind of innovative guy, whether that's on the pitch or off the pitch?
Yes. Well, yes, with an asterisk. In terms of English football, 1,000,000%. This is like the freshest English manager we've seen come through the system. Been a lot in the 21st century, I'd say, and that is because he didn't really go through the system. As the statements kind of outlined, he decided to go abroad and learn his badges and institute this possession style of football, and come back here to prove himself and skip going through sort of the lower leagues. And it is that emotional intelligence thing. Maybe that will get banded around. I can already see memes of when Chelsea lose 3-0, but at least Potter's got his degree in emotional intelligence, so it'll be okay. But that is something that should be paid attention to. Julian Nagelsmann at Bayern Munich, one who's a revolutionist in himself, a young manager that everyone's celebrated. He's gone on record saying it is his true belief that being a football manager is about 60% tactics, 40% just being social, being a good person, interactions. So knowing how to interact with your players, understand them, and get the best out of them, that is something that it really is valuable. I think the best thing where you can sum up with Potter is this will probably be, I mean, I probably said this about Tuchel, but it should be the biggest test we'll see of Chelsea's current squad, should they stay together, or what's left of the overhaul, of how good they really are. Because I think the constant debate this year has been, Chelsea are doing bad, Tuchel's just so awful. No, Chelsea are doing bad because he's got terrible players. Like that, those two sides of the debate clashing. With Potter, give it a year or a year and a half, we should see these players under his coaching really make steps forward and turn into the best versions of themselves. If they don't do that, then maybe that really is on the players. It'd be really hard to throw that on Graham Potter, considering what he's achieved.
Absolutely. Before I ask a question to Lewis, one last thing. Do you think that it will allow him to get to what he wants to be doing with his football team quicker, having better players than he did at Brighton? Or do you still see that taking a while? And do you question whether Chelsea, and in particular, probably more so, Chelsea fans will have the patience that requires? Or do you not think, because I have the hope that now he will hopefully have a bit of a manager bounce that will help him through this initial period. Then we'll get to the World Cup where it almost has a mini preseason with certain players. Then obviously some players will get knocked out early of the World Cup, come back and have also a little bit of a mini preseason with him. And then we get going again. Or do you think we will have to sit here and potentially even not get top 4 this season with him?
Well, top 4 has to be, I would have said top 5 has to be a minimum, but it's so competitive. Top 6 has to be an absolute minimum of Graham Potter.
Oh, yeah. Top 6 has to be a minimum.
Absolute minimum.
But I tell you what, mate, I would rather come 9th than 5th, because before I have to bother myself with Europa League group stages as Chelsea, you just save me that and do a Conte and win the league without European football.
No, I mean? Come 5th, so I can come on the channel and preview.
Oh no, to be fair,
your games being finaled.
We now haven't won it all because we haven't gone to the Conference League. So I'm just saying,
maybe we need to come
I
7th.
wouldn't mind 7th.
There we go. Exactly. What I was going to say about Potter is I don't think he'll get. He might get to where he wants to play, like the style he wants to play, a lot quicker than he did at Brighton. But there is pros and cons with working with supposed better players. I've been reading a lot about some different football managers in the past in the English game, and what typically happened was it was a lot more meritocratic in the Premier League, where players, the English First Division, there was a manager called Ron Saunders who started very low in the pyramid and worked his way up, and he was able to get like top jobs. And what you could see happen there was, once they're not working with players who don't have an ego, it's fair to say, and just young and raw and just willing to bend and work to your every will. When you don't have that and you have more experienced players who are less moldable, managers can struggle. So maybe that's an angle we'll have to follow with Graham Potter and see what with players. But he should get to the style of football he wants to play. But it is worth saying as well, the expectation, I think, between Chelsea and Brighton is different. I know that sounds obvious, but at Brighton, the expectation was really finish mid-table. At Chelsea, the expectation, or really the aim, the ambition, is to become a Manchester City and a Liverpool. And to do that, you have to become one of the best sides in the world. It feels like Chelsea at the moment are currently just the tier below that. And that's not good enough to win you the league. That's not good enough to win you the Champions League consistently. And even though you did get to the cup finals last year, I think really the league is the focus. So Graham Potter's got to just show he can challenge that ambition in this role, which is something he's not had to do with these level of players.
Fair. Now let me get to Lewis. Lewis, you were not aware. We literally had the worst timing of the start of the stream of literally all time. As my timer was running down, the notification that unfortunately the Queen has passed away came out. So
that was mad.
Timing of the century. Now we have no idea whether we'll have games this weekend. We have no idea will that, as much as is obviously a sad occasion, be an advantage to Potter if there's no games and he has training instead. Don't know. We'll have to see. But Lewis, number one, obviously, if you want to, you can still speak your thoughts in terms of the whole sacking of Thomas Tuchel. And otherwise, what are your thoughts on Graham Potter becoming the Chelsea manager? It's certainly a little bit out of the stereotype of Chelsea. Now, of course, we had Frank Lampard, but that was kind of a situation of, well, with the transfer ban at the time and, him being a Chelsea legend, is a little bit different to going to a manager whose best club was Brighton and Hove Albion. Like, there's, to some extent, there's a risk to that. Absolutely. The 5-year contract maybe shows that the ownership do take it seriously, that they want something long-term. It just didn't want it with Tuchel, it seems. But what are your thoughts on everything that happened, well, since yesterday and including today, bro?
Tuchel being sacked was an absolute disgrace, first and foremost. I think we can all agree on that. It looks like it was in the cards for weeks, but they did a really good job of hiding any potential fallout between him and Tuchel if that was the case. It's annoying. Like, I really thought Tuchel would have been our long-term manager. I thought we were given the belief that they were going to back Tuchel throughout the season no matter what happened. And they didn't. It's one of the maddest decisions I've ever seen, but whatever. I guess we have to move past it. But we got the best possible manager we could have got. I didn't expect us to be able to prize Graham Potter away from Brighton, but I think it's a great move for us. He's been well overdue a big move. I think he could potentially improve our attack. Like, they need all the help they can get, but he'll give them some attacking patterns and potentially be able to help train them, because I know Tuchel usually gave players creative freedom in the final third and that didn't work out. So maybe he'll give them a different method, but I don't know. I have to see it. I just feel happy with the appointment. I think there's a lot of pressure on him too, because if he doesn't succeed from the off, it's only going to get more and more toxic in the grounds, because everyone's going to be fuming and still heartbroken over the whole Tuchel decision. So it's going to be a bit rough for Potter initially, but he can turn things around. Like, we're already playing like shit anyway, so it can't be any worse. But he won't be given the same patience Tuchel will.
That is the positive, because like, we've not had a good start to the season with even on results, but the results were much better than our performances. Like, we were talking about this yesterday. First game, we scraped a 1-0 win against Everton with a penalty. Everton didn't even have a striker that day, and they still had chances, right? Then, okay, we played well against Tottenham and were kind of robbed by VAR. Sure, that was the one good game we had. Then we lost 3-0 to Leeds. Then we scraped the win against an awful Leicester. Now, okay, we were down to 10 men after 28 minutes, but still scraped the win against Leicester and needed Vardy to miss like 2 or 3 absolute sitters. Then go lose to Southampton. Then go we a bit lucky with VAR against West Ham, and then go lose to Dinamo Zagreb. So, and playing badly in all of those games, but Spurs, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, other than certain periods in the game. And that's obviously a problem, right? So Lewis is not wrong when he says, it can't exactly be worse. Obviously, what I'm not sure about, there is obviously this whole London Bridge, whatever the thing is called, once the monarch passes away.
Yeah,
Not
London
sure if the
Bridge
Premier League
is
will
down.
actually be cancelled or postponed for 10 days now. How are they going to fit? Like, I know it's the Queen dying, but how are they going to fit this in with the fixture list, like with the World Cup and everything? Like, how
They'll
is that
find
going?
a way. You lot think they care about these players' well-being? Nope. They'll
No.
just shove it in some midweek.
I will say, I mean, I was Googling for a friend if people get a day off work tomorrow when the Queen dies, and it doesn't seem to be so. So maybe football will go ahead. I was Googling for a friend,
Really?
definitely not myself.
10 days off.
We do not get 10 days off. We get 10 days of mourning, and on the 10th day, that's considered a bank holiday, but it's not legal, so you could still be asked to come into work. I hope for my friend's sake that he gets a day off.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
But let's also not forget there is also Champions League happening, which is in England. But will the UEFA be all about this? Like, I mean, the FA and the Premier League might, play along with this if they decide to cancel Premier League games. But I feel like the UEFA will not. So I'm not sure whether they'll still play at Stamford Bridge. What will they switch around the home and away ends rights with Salzburg next week? I have no idea. Surely this all seems to be way too short notice. I have no idea what's going to happen. If news comes out as we're streaming, we will try to explain everything. But yeah, Pice has joined us. Pice. Now, if you don't want to talk about the Tuchel situation, as I know you're not a big fan of, you don't have to. But if you want to, please do. If you don't, Graham Potter. Now, I know you're not happy about Tuchel being gone, but are you happy about Graham Potter being appointed? Pice, can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you. Oh, there you are.
Hello?
There you are. Now I can hear you.
Good. Can everyone hear me now? My
Yes,
computer
yes.
and StreamYard has been playing up. Definitely looking forward to Graham Potter. Obviously, I've made my feelings known about Tuchel. Very, very hard one to move on for me, personally. And I watched a little bit, I heard a little bit in the car when I was in the car earlier about what Alex was saying in terms of the timing is, I think, quite ridiculous, to be honest with you. I completely agree that, it seems like they've been working on Potter Potter for a long time, actually. And, things have obviously deteriorated over the summer. And I just think to sack him, kind of a few games into the season, is kind of ridiculous, to be honest. At least wait until the international break. But I mean, what's done is done. Potter is here. I'm looking forward to it. I think he's an exciting young manager. I have a few reservations, but I would have reservations with every manager except Pep Guardiola, to be honest with you. So, I'm definitely excited for the future.
Fair. One other negative point I would like to mention is if Liverpool keep being this shit, I'm a little bit concerned that they will get Tuchel instead of Klopp, and that I would not be a fan of. So can you please not sack Klopp? For the love of God, do not do that. But Alex, I will actually get back to you, and let's have a little bit of a conversation about what Potter does. Now, a lot of fans have already started to lose their shit, especially the ones that actually, at least, I'm not sure if that many wanted Tuchel gone as such, but let's say the people that aren't exactly unhappy about him being gone are now very depressed that we're probably going to keep playing a back three. Do you expect us to do that? And how would you explain Graham Potter tactically? Is it he just always plays a back three, like 3-4-3, 3-5-2? Or does he switch his formations? Does it just purely depend on the squad he gets? And what do you expect him to do at Chelsea? Because obviously there's a lot of fans that have differing opinions on what formation suits the squad that we have. Because obviously we have a lot of number 8 in the team, but most 3-back formations don't have number 8. Now, if you play a proper 3-5-2 on a regular basis, you can have 8 in your 3-back system. And also he plays wing as a wing-back, but we have great wing-backs. So will we still play wing as a wing-back, or will we just play our great wing-backs at wing-back?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the formation thing first, because I think the perception is that Potter plays a back three all the time. But last season, he actually used 8 different formations on more than one occasion. And that included a 4-2-3-1, a 4-1-2-1-2, 4-4-2, 4-1-4-1, which is a 4-3-3 anyway, but still, as well as back three formations. But it's worth saying that formations, the records...
By the way, thank you for just saying that a 4-1-4-1 is basically just a 4-3-3. Thank you. Finally, someone says that.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm the one to say it. I feel the same way. Someone should have said it before. It's what I was going to say with Potter playing back four or back three. It's worth saying the record of formations isn't based on what a team starts with or what you might see them lined up with when the game starts. They could be registered to play in a 5 at the back if they play a 5 at the back for a considerable amount of time in a game. So I think some of those back four formations come from Potter's tinkering. And I think that's a resemblance to Tuchel. Maybe that hasn't been mentioned yet. Potter's very tactically aware, but against Manchester United on the first day of the season, I remember something with his wing backs where he made sure they were pressuring United at the right time. So make sure, I can't remember what he did with his front line, but he basically made it so that De Gea had very limited options to pass out. And he's played and you can see that this season he's played Trossard at left wing back at times, and he's played Cucurella last season at left centre back, at left back, left wing back. He's a guy who likes to be versatile, maybe less fluid than Tuchel, maybe a bit more sort of prepared from the start, if that makes sense, like coming in with a game plan and sticking to it.
Basically, we won't sit there after a game. What formation did we play?
Yeah, I think you'll be a little more sure of what he's trying to do. But if I had to guess, I reckon he will try and start with a back three, because I think that suits Chelsea at the moment the most, I'd say. Like when you've seemingly gone to switch to a back four, that's when the bad performances have become worse. I mean, I'm basing it mainly off the Southampton game, to be fair, where we agreed, I think he tried to line up a back four, but we couldn't really tell. So I think he'll go in for a more stable back three and then look to build from there. And maybe the aim in future will be to go to a back four. But I think it's worth saying that I know Tuchel's made the back three get a boring reputation, I guess. But
no, Conte did that one. Conte did that already.
Conte as well. But there's reasons why Pep Guardiola's sometimes switched to it as well. I think there is room in the future. We'll see a lot more teams picking up and being a bit more attacking. I think Inter Milan are a good example of that. So if he does decide to line up in back threes, don't hold your head down and think, oh God, here we go again. Maybe have a bit of hope in it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm personally an advocate of a back four with the way you play. Now, obviously, I was mostly an advocate of that compared to the back three we played. Now, I am happy to be proven wrong is maybe the wrong word, but happy to be shown how attacking a back three theoretically could be. Obviously, if you don't always, as soon as you don't have the ball, shift back into a back five, that automatically makes you more attacking. And then when you have transitions, you don't have all your players basically in your own box or around your own box. So if they just stay higher, you find it easier to get back at them. One last question before I take this back to Lewis and Pice. I have a question that isn't even necessarily now built on just Graham Potter, but just more of a football in general. The way you just said about Manchester, what he did against Manchester United with how he presses, do you think that he does that more so because he was always the inferior team? Or do you think he will keep that approach where everything he does will always be very heavily dependent on the opponent, also with a good team? Because I think that's always a bit difficult. Sometimes I think the super clever tactical managers sometimes overdo it, but trying to adjust every game to what the opponent does rather than trying to make their team the best at what we do. I'm not saying that's always the case, but I think that's sometimes been an issue for certain managers. Do you think he will change that approach now, being at a better team and a team that's going to be regularly dominant, especially as we're now going to constantly face like low blocks and stuff? Or is he going to always be trying to adapt to what the opposition does?
That's an interesting point because, I think what some people will call that debate is like sort of pragmatism v philosophy of, are you going to be a Pep Guardiola and you make people adapt to you? You have a set game plan and you stick to it? Or are you going to be like a Rafa Benitez, I think is the all-time best example. Someone who would give like binders to his players on every single game of preparation of what you need to do for this specific game against this specific player. And I think Potter leans more to sort of the Benitez side of tinkering with his team and tweaking it to deal best with the opposition and how to defend against them, but also hit them as well. Like when we talk about things like that tinkering with your team and trying to get them, like depending on the opponent, that it's not necessarily about always defending, right? I think a good example would be Tuchel in the Champions League winning campaign, where he changed the team fairly often in like the personnel and the games, but it wasn't always to defend. It was also sometimes to try and attack, like play a Kante against Real Madrid in a midfield three, so he can make those long runs going forward, or playing a Timo Werner to try and stretch the defense and get in behind. So I think he will lean more to that aspect. So if he his overall philosophy is just really more to hold the ball. But I think he'll try to look to exploit teams' weaknesses and cover for his own at the moment. Maybe as time goes on, we'll see him sort of really bed his own philosophy. But at the moment, I don't think he's totally associated with one.
Fair. Pice, I'll take it back to you. Now, you said you have your reservations, as you would with probably most managers, like you said, other than probably Pep Guardiola. And even then, we'd probably be like, oh, but are we ever going to win the Champions League with him? But what are your specific reservations? Is it the big step from a Brighton to a Chelsea? Is it managing the bigger ego players that you would come across in a Chelsea dressing room compared to a Brighton, Östersund, or Swansea dressing room? Or do you just think it's, for example, the more regular games, us being in Europe, we have more games, meaning less time on the training pitch? Will that hamper his whole idea? Like, I think personally, it hampered Sarri. The fact that we played so regularly and he wasn't as used to that for the whole season with Napoli. He had more time to get what he was trying to do going also during a season. That's one of my kind of minor, what's the right word? Reservations, I guess. Will he be able to implement what he's trying to do when we basically never have time to train between games? That's my biggest concern, if I will. But what are your reservations, Pice?
Pretty much what you've just said, to be honest. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's the pressure, it's the step up. I don't necessarily think I have reservations about him in terms of man management, because everything we hear is he's one of the best in the business at that. I just have more fears that, like, initially, players will they look down on him in terms of like how that kind of they did with Sarri, in terms of he come from a lower club and they don't really, like, he's come from Brighton. Like, we usually go for the big respected names, and this guy is like, I don't know if he has the, like, authority, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I don't know if he can stamp his mark down on the team and be like, I don't know. And again, this could be just pure assumptions, but just based off, what I've seen, like, he's created a very happy family at Brighton and stuff like that. And it's not, and initially he might create that at Chelsea, but 6 months into his period, will he be able to keep everyone happy? Will he be able to create that family, create that culture that Todd Boehly wants to create? And when players get tough, and with squad players, even at Chelsea, they want more minutes than the Brighton players that are squad players. It's just a completely different club to Brighton, and I'm just worried about
more game time to come around at Chelsea than there is at Brighton, just because we're in more competitions, right? So that should make it a little bit easier to give more squad players more game time, I guess.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I think just maximizing the performance of these squad players will be a big challenge for him as well, because I think initially I expect the likes of Pulisic and Ziyech to give their heart out and stuff. I'm more worried about, like, 6 months down the line, and even so short term, to be honest, because as we've already said, I think the timing of it is just ridiculous. I can't believe. I mean, he may get more time now to work if the sporting events get cancelled, but yeah, I mean, it's just, I just don't agree with the timing. I don't agree with it at all. I think getting him in just before, or just during the international break would have been much better. But even then, you don't have some of your main players there, so I think it's all a bit of a mess in the way they've appointed him and the timing, to be honest with you.
That authority is something worth, like, touching on as well. I think that will depend, what you said, Pice, on how self-aware Potter is. If he comes in and says, look, I know I've been at Brighton, but these methods have worked, and this is why, and it's like a paraphrasing, of course, and to the Chelsea players, this is how I'm going to improve you. If he's self-aware about that, then I think he'll do quite well. But if in that scenario, which I don't think will happen, I think he's quite a smart man. In that scenario, goes, look what I've achieved here. Look how great this will be. I can do what I've done at Brighton to you guys. That might be when,
like, we're coming to training the next day with this Champions League winning medal.
Yeah, that might be when Thiago Silva goes, like, I've won league titles, mate. You can piss right off. So it depends how self-aware he is.
Yeah.
I mean, a few people in the chat were, I'm not sure if questioning or criticizing, but one of the two, because you said some players look down on Sarri, or some people look down on Sarri. Do you want to specify who or what exactly you meant with that?
Well, I don't know. I remember when Sarri came in, there was a few stories of, like, I think especially from The Athletic, I'm pretty sure it was from them or someone else, that he'd been, obviously at Napoli.
Even a thing yet when Sarri
Yeah.
was appointed.
I'll
of
say
course
the
it
name.
would,
It was
yeah.
Rory Jennings. He called him shit. He called him saying he's never been in a top floor Italian coach. He was the one who really drove that hole. I think that's what Pius wanted to say.
No,
Maybe.
obviously the fans obviously dealt with Sarri and stuff, but I think some of the players, it was a completely different style of football, and I just think they didn't take him as seriously than a big name.
I personally disagree. Considering our start to the season, I don't think there's much evidence of that because we had a great start to the season on the side, remind you. But in terms of the media coverage of Sarri, I do agree that there was a little bit of who's this guy? Is he good enough? Blah blah blah. Whether that's people in the fan base like Rory or whether it's the broader, media landscape.
Well,
But
we
I
won't
think-
have to deal with that anyway because Potter's English, so they'll probably back
Exactly.
him more.
Although,
than,
as you can see, they're already saying, toxic Chelsea, don't go there. So who knows? Who knows? Lewis, let me take it back to you. My apologies that I haven't asked you something and I feel like too long. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, 446 people watching. Get subscribed if you haven't already. I massively appreciate it. And subscribe to Alex and Lewis as well. The links are down in the description. Lewis, do you have reservations like that Pice mentioned that also I touched on? And otherwise, your reaction to what Alex said in terms of how he works with formations, how he works with players?
Yeah, in terms of him working with players, I feel like our attackers will thrive as a result of that, and I expect them to take to it a lot better. I'm not too sure about how the overall response will be because I need to see how the manager performs initially before I gauge how everyone else responds to it. But I am feeling optimistic about it. What was the other question again?
Now let me think of that.
Just what are your reservations? Because for me, another one I thought of just quickly, just to mention. I thought, Graham Potter isn't the biggest name in world football. Are we going to be able to attract those big signings that we're still going to be able to want? That's another thing.
That will all depend on whether
we want
we make
apparently
top
Edson
four or not.
Alvarez. I'm sure Potter won't stop us from getting him.
Okay, well, what happens if we want to get Rafael Leao? Is he going to choose, or Nkunku? Is he going to choose Graham Potter, or is he going to choose, someone else? That's the
but
big
Chelsea
thing
still has pull by itself, even in spite of the manager.
I don't think it's as much as we think. I think that more links
Not
to
as
Man
much,
United.
but it's there. Like, we're not at the level of a United where like everyone's just going to say no because we're in a shit position. It will
I think he's a good manager to work under. Like, especially people attacking signings will like his style of play, but I just think there's definitely a discussion to be had there in terms of
no, but even in
it's
spite
not
of
that
that,
attractive, is it?
the biggest thing with Graham Potter was his scouting system and being able to find gems. So I don't.
We will, but the fans
case.
are still gonna crave a big signing or two every summer. They're not just going to sit back and be happy with. I know Moises Caicedo and Cucurella have been good and stuff, but they ain't going to sit back for the small names. They're still going to want to be looking.
I get that, but I feel like the owner
they have
would
a
be
thrive
as well.
for a big signing every summer, something to look forward to. You know what I mean?
I get that, but I think the owner would also be pursuing that as well. So I get you in terms of what pool would we have, but to me, that's all dependent on where we finish this season. Like, we have to finish in top four as a minimum if we want to be able to attract anybody. If we don't, then it is based on gems. If we can make top four, though, I do believe our name has enough pulling power that we could be able to attract the right players, but it's only a guess. It's still speculation. It could easily go the other way.
You don't need to be a Man United those who sign good players. Though. You don't need to sign in sort of the Haalands or whatever to win the league. I think Liverpool's the best example you look at here with a Graham Potter sort of style scouting. Like, being smart scouting doesn't mean going for Moises Caicedo. It means going for a Luis Diaz, going for a Mohamed Salah, someone who's ready to explode. And it's just if you're a Brighton, they're probably just out of your reach. But as a Chelsea, you can get them in rather than players like a Darwin Núñez over a Romelu Lukaku. I think that would be a good angle for Chelsea.
I'd rather not have him, to be honest with you.
I
hope we don't find another Darwin Núñez. Jesus,
just an example.
Yeah, I think a lot of that will depend on just how this season goes. Number one, obviously, top four will play a factor, but also how we play. I think if we, get top four, have a good season in terms of the way we, like I say, the way we play and not sit there like we have done towards the end of last season and at the start of this season where we're like, we might get a result every now and again, but frankly, we are absolutely dog awful at football, especially at football that is nice to look at. And quite frankly, we were, and we have been for a while. And I'm not sitting here and blaming that purely on Thomas Tuchel at all. But if Graham Potter can find a way to change that, regardless of whose fault it was in the past, whether that's just players then, I don't know, not being pricks anymore as they were under Tuchel and, buying into it. And then we play well and say get third, fourth, whatever, and have a good season, I don't know, Champions League run, Cup run, whatever, then I don't think it will be a problem. If we play like shit and somehow scrape top 4, then maybe it can be a problem that the name doesn't help you over there. A bit like Roma, Roma don't exactly play super attractive football. But Jose Mourinho, even though he doesn't play attractive football, he's still Jose Mourinho. Like, otherwise, they wouldn't have got Dybala or Matic or all these types of players. They wouldn't have, because Roma isn't that club. I know they want the Conference League, but it's the Conference League. Do you know what I mean? Roma are, if anything, way too big to be in the Conference League, if I'm being totally honest. What was I going to ask you? Yeah, I was going to ask you one more question, Alex, before you leave that one. How do I try to word it best? If obviously you have an overall grasp of the Chelsea squad, if I could ask you, and I know this is putting you on the spot a little bit, so if it's difficult, fair enough.
No, go for it.
But do you have or what's your initial instinct, shall I say? Which players will benefit? Which players will, suffer from that new appointment? For example, Mendy v Kepa. Will Kepa have a serious shout at being number one again just because he's better with the ball at his feet? Just a few of those. Aubameyang, Havertz, will it be both? Will it be one of them? Will Havertz play in a completely different position? Will he still be up front? Obviously, you can't know all of that, I understand. But also, if he keeps playing a 3-5-2, will all of our wingers like Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech, and Raheem Sterling, but he would probably end up in the front too, just not play? Or will they play a wing back? On the left, maybe Cucurella is very good, but his attacking is probably the one where he's less good than the rest of his game, and Ben Chilwell doesn't seem quite fully ready yet. On the other side, I don't see any of these players playing above instead of Reece James, no matter the position, quite frankly. It doesn't really matter the position. Reece James is better than Christian Pulisic at everything. and Hakim Ziyech, mind you, other than left foot in swingers, maybe.
Yeah, I think the Kepa point is really interesting to touch on, because I think the thing holding Kepa back as a keeper, I mean, it's a little bit of coaching as well. I think we've touched on his tendency to whip his hands back before bringing them forward to make a save. But I think a lot of these issues have been mentally. Potter is, if you were to pluck a manager out of thin air who would maybe be able to put his arm around Kepa and try and turn something around, maybe Graham Potter would be the guy, That's a really interesting debate, because, Mendy's definitely not world class. He's not been at it this season, and playing out of the back, he's horrific. I think looking at players, I think will stand out will definitely be the young ones. I think that's who Potter will tend to try and work with, because they're going to be more receptive to his ideas. So Fofana, Chalobah, Cucurella will be one as well. Maybe Gallagher as well. That could be interesting one to see what he can do with a player who seems like a little bit of a spare part at the moment from what I've seen. Armando Broja, that could be really fun to see how he does it with him. I think the big players who will rely on the older ones will be probably the Raheem Sterlings and the Reece Jameses, one's already established. I'd like to see what he does with players who suit a possession side, like a Jorginho. That'll be quite fun to see what happens there. Players who won't do well, looking at your squad right now, I mean, it's hard not to look at Aubameyang just because of how disruptive he can be in a dressing room and the stories off the pitch. That if you're trying to think of a player who'll turn against Potter first, you probably imagine it would be him. I mean, maybe that's harsh. We've only got the media idea of him. Might be a wonderful guy behind the scenes, but he'd be the one guy you think, not sure. But in fairness to the rest, I think the only other player I can think of right now who's at a level where they could, ego-wise could probably overpower Graham Potter is Thiago Silva. And Thiago Silva seems like a very good leader, almost like a captain.
Ziyech as well, by far. Ziyech is one that I'm really worried about.
Well, Ziyech, you think will turn?
That guy's got the biggest ego in the whole Chelsea squad. No doubt about that.
You think?
No doubt.
Well, I mean, that would be quite interesting to see. It's fun to have an ego with someone who's only really done good in the Eredivisie, but, whatever. Yeah, fair enough. I was going to say, I think Thiago Silva would be the one who could probably overpower Potter, but he's one of the least likely to. He seems like one of the nicest people in the world. Really looking at your squad, I think you're quite well set up for Graham Potter, and I think there's a lot of players who could benefit from him.
Well, that is at least a positive note to end it on. Alex, thank you very much for joining us. You will now leave so I can get to the other boys as well, even though Lewis needs to leave in a minute as well. Appreciate it very much, everybody. Go check out Alex's YouTube channel, his Twitter, his TikTok. Just check out all the links down in the description. Follow him everywhere. Appreciate you, as always, my man.
So, yeah, thanks, guys.
Take care, bro.
Bye-bye.
Lewis, as you need to head off in a couple of minutes as well, I'll go with another question to you before I bring in Clutch, who we haven't seen in a while. So,
do you see a super chat as well, by the way?
oh yeah, I have. I did highlight it, but I forgot to well, I starred it.
So I want to make sure you didn't miss it.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Might as well get it up, and get you involved on that. Tuchel with the donation, I appreciate it very much, saying there's no proof TT was going to improve the squad anytime soon. Sterling playing in the pivot against Zagreb showed nothing but pure desperation. And if I'm honest, I don't disagree with this statement. How many players have really improved under Thomas Tuchel other than Antonio Rudiger?
Potter will play players in weird positions as well. This is what I don't
get. That's
get.
true, but but it's a difference to say playing them weird positions and having an idea to it compared to Sterling in a double pivot. He didn't talk about other players out of position. That's not what the super chat says. But Sterling in a double pivot, I'm pretty sure Graham Potter won't do that one. But I mean, regardless, but I'm more trying to focus on the improve the squad, because I do think that was a little bit of an issue. I just don't think that's the type of manager Tuchel is, right? And that's why I said to you earlier, Pies, remember when we were texting, and I was like, maybe it was just inevitable. With everything that had gone on, maybe we were never going to be allowed to keep him, no matter what. Maybe it was never going to go that way. Maybe it was always going to have to be, unfortunately, don't know the right word, but just it wasn't just going to last through everything that the club went through in the last 6 months or whatever. Because Tuchel, in my opinion, isn't the guy for transition, because at least I haven't seen him improve that many players. Like at Chelsea, the past is one thing, but at Chelsea, how many players got better? And that's my big hope with Graham Potter, that we will be able to improve some players, not only improve them back to the level that we know that they can be at, which obviously some players were struggling for, blah, 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 whatever the reasons for that may have been, that they can get back to being better, but also getting better from that. That's kind of my big hope. Lewis, number one, what's the reaction to the super chat, and then taking that on over to Graham Potter as well?
I only get that because we never really addressed the midfield properly, and it all depended on Zakaria and Kante and Kovacic's fitness. The attack, I never really had much faith in anyway, but I don't really know how they could have improved. I just really would have rathered a complete overhaul of our attacking options. I don't know. I understand people think
good now.
What?
Then what? What if our attack becomes good now? Then what?
It'll be interesting because, I know we're actually going to be playing with patterns of play under Potter, but there are going to be similarities with Tuchel as well, and it's also not going to be the attackers he necessarily wants. Plus, I saw Pies' tweet earlier about chance creation and still struggling to finish, and it is very similar to what we have to deal with too. So it could be a lot of the same in terms of going forward. We might just make more chances. And we made a lot of chances at the start with Tuchel, and we still didn't score a lot of goals. We just made more chances at that time. So it could easily be more of the same. It all depends on the attackers changing it for us.
This is what I think. It's like, I'm excited in terms of what he could do, in terms of just the overall rebuild he could bring. But, I don't see it, unless he dramatically changes the way we play in terms of formation as well, and he does play a 4 at the back, it's not going to be that different to Tuchel, in my opinion. Even in the early Tuchel days, I feel like we'll have a little bit of a bounce. I feel like we might play a bit better stuff. A couple more attackers might improve, but I don't think it was worth getting rid of such a good manager to bring in Graham Potter. That's my whole thing with it. Maybe in 2 years it'll be worth it, but right now, I just didn't agree with the timing of sacking him. I think it's pretty clear he should have got more time, in my opinion. But I know a lot of people disagree, and a lot of people just focus on that Zagreb game and say, the last 6 months was bad. Yeah, but I mean, what manager is going to do well during a divorce and sanctions? Seriously, I don't understand that.
I don't know. I think at the most, maybe our football just looks better, but it all depends on how we finish our chances, and that depends on the players. So I mean,
Brighton are in the top 5 in terms of XG defensively as well. So they don't, his teams are compact, but again, there's going to be certain things that suffer as well away from losing Tuchel, moving on to Potter, and I just think people aren't realising that yet. That's my only thing, and I got cooked on Twitter earlier for saying,
it's almost like when I told you that with Marina.
He drew as a Brighton boss, he's drawn 44 games. And there was a video on Sky Sports about him being questioned as to what he could do in terms of, so you create the chances, but where's the finishing? And he was saying, oh, it's a process. Well, we had that at certain points under Tuchel too. Like, I'm just trying to figure out the difference. I don't get the difference between moving to Tuchel and Potter. They're very similar ideologies, in my opinion.
I'm not sure if they're similar ideologies, if I'm honest with you, mate. It's because I think they have a very different.
They both play possession football. They both want to attack aggressively, even though we didn't see it as much over the last few seasons. They're both tactically flexible. People are saying, "Well, Potter will change in game and da-da-da." Did Tuchel not do that? Yes, he did. You know what I mean? Like, there's not one thing. In my opinion,
that's my almost my biggest issue almost when people say, "Oh, it's tactically flexible." I don't need you to be tactically flexible in the middle of a game after you got it wrong with what you started with. Get it right from the first place. That's what I want from a manager. To whatever system.
You guys are gonna have to bounce anyway, though. But take care.
That I want to work. Not have 7 different ideas during a game. It's the last thing I want to see. The fact in my opinion, is like a little bit like that. The comment is pure desperation. The amount of times we change formation in second halves this season, it's crazy. Like, we changed it every 10 minutes at some point in some games. Why is my camera unfocused? Come on, focus.
Loz, take care, bro. Bless. I gotta bounce.
Hey, Lewis, I appreciate you. Take care.
I got bless.
Like I say, it's. I know what you're saying, Pice, and I understand also a lot of it is that, you don't want Tuchel to be gone and stuff. I think that, number one, as much as we have problems with finishing, I think you can't just simply say, okay, we have problems with finishing. Brighton have problems with finishing, therefore we will also have problems with finishing. Now, we might not be as good as finishing at Liverpool as Liverpool and City are. We're still better at it than Brighton are. Do you know what I mean? Our players are on average, right? Now, currently, in terms of really bad form, they're not. But if we hope to assume that whether it's purely manager bounce or whether it's just Graham Potter, man manager or whatever, getting more out of them, their finishing will also go up. Like, whether that's Aubameyang, who knows whether he'll be used to, or whether it's Sterling or Havertz or Broja, all of these guys will, in my opinion, improve. And if your confidence is up, finishing is purely about confidence. Finishing, in my opinion, is least about ability from anything you do on a football pitch. It's just about confidence.
Are you confident that confidence will last long term, though? That's my big issue, because I think this season, or even in the next 2 months, it might improve. But I don't know. There's just something within me that just doesn't.
No, see, but I think it goes a bit longer than that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it might not be forever, but if it's better, like, for a bit, that's already better than sticking to Tuchel where it wouldn't have done that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if maybe you believe that Tuchel would have turned it around, in my heart, I was not sure what he could have done. I always hoped that he would find something, do something that would make it click, whether it's the system, whether it's the players, just make it click. He didn't so far. Would he have done with more time? We will never know. Some people will think, yes, he would have. Some people will say, no, he wouldn't have. At the end of the day, none of us will never know that for sure. But Clutch, let me bring you in. You were kind of hidden there under Super Chat, so I nearly forgot. I do apologize, Clutch. First of all, it's a pleasure to welcome you back on. Now, obviously, I don't want to make Pies too depressed, so let's not dwell too much on Thomas Tuchel and focus more on Graham Potter. But before we talk about that second Super Chat by Tuchel, and we'll get to that in a minute. Clutch, why don't you take me through the last 24 hours or so, or 36 hours, if you will. How have you taken all of that? Like, just share your thoughts, bro.
I'm genuinely shocked, to be honest. I mean, I do think it's really harsh on Tuchel. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you just spent upwards of $250 million to get the players that he wanted, and then you give him 5 games. Like, that to me is insane. Like, he deserved a lot longer than that. I'm not, like, obviously I've been somebody who's been very critical of Tuchel, but at the same time, if you're going to spend big on him, like, if you're going to go get Aubameyang, especially Aubameyang, who I am not a big fan of, I don't think he's good enough. I don't think he is what he used to be. I think that was a horrible mistake of a signing. If you're going to go sign him, then you surely have to stick with Tuchel, right? You have to. But then we just go and fire him, and now you're going to be stuck with Aubameyang for however long we're stuck with him. And if he's not part of Graham Potter's plans, then you're creating another Deadwood situation. So, I mean, I do think a lot of people are taking this way overboard when it comes to it, like blaming certain players or something like that. Like I just the writing has been on the wall. I mean, I did think this was going to happen eventually. To be honest with you, I mean, as much as I sat here and begged for him to change, you could see the stubbornness of his unwillingness to change, and a lot of things just kept happening. I mean, losing to Zagreb 2 days ago just had to have tipped everything over the fence. I mean, obviously, I think behind the scenes were a lot of the reasons why he ended up getting sacked. But I mean, he deserved at least until Christmas, in my opinion, to be honest.
Or at least until the World Cup, because obviously it would have been really stupid to wait for the World Cup if they wanted to sack him. It would have been really stupid to wait the World Cup out and then sack him at Christmas. That would have been silly. But probably World Cup, yeah.
Yeah, and I do see the reasons. I mean, honestly, like you guys have said earlier, I've not seen players improve that are not defensive players. And I know people want to say the attack is crap, but it's impossible for all our signings to keep being crap like that. It's literally just impossible. The statistics of life does not tell us that that's going to happen. Maybe some of them are not good enough, for sure. Maybe that's what it is, but not all of them. I think it's unfortunate for Tuchel. I mean, I was a fan of him. I didn't think he was a man manager. I mean, I remember me and Pius having this conversation like 7 months ago about this. But I do think he was a brilliant tactician, and even that lately has seemed off. It's just like, I mean, I think I remember watching, I think it was your guys' review of the game the other day, and I think I remember Pius talking about how like Tuchel just doesn't get up in the dugout anymore. To like, he just seems a lot less proactive and just kind of static on the sideline. So it's like, what happened with him? Why is he not as involved? Did he give up with some of these players? Is that what's happening? It's just that it's an unfortunate thing for him. I really thought we'd get more time. I mean, I woke up to the news and it literally rolled over and was like, wow. But it's unfortunate. I did think he was going to get a little bit more time, but it was not to be, I suppose.
It was not to be. It's a difficult one because you talk about stubbornness, and to some extent, maybe there is some stubbornness in maybe some selection of players. The fact that, I mean, Havertz and Mount were dropped at times, but maybe not as early, not as often as a lot of us fans would have liked. Maybe players like Hudson-Odoi, like Pulisic, like Hakim Ziyech weren't always given the chances that they maybe wanted, maybe also deserved at some points. But I'm not sure the stubbornness so much applies to this season. Towards the end of last season, it definitely applies. But towards the start of this season, like, we tried a lot of different things. Now, they didn't all work, and I think the problem is that we didn't start working on them early enough, and then we all of a sudden tried them, and then it didn't work. And obviously, we have the fan base saying, "Oh, back four is shit." Well, I'm like, well, if you don't work on it, and we don't look like either we didn't work on it well, or we didn't work on it. One of the two options, because we certainly didn't look like a team that knew what we were doing in this system. And it's like, clearly there's plenty of teams in the world that know what they're doing in a back four system. Just we didn't. I'm going to get to this other super chat in a second as well, which I don't think is quite hitting the nail on the head either. But I'm not sure if quite stubbornnness is maybe the right word. Like I say, he tried a lot of different things. For me, why I agree with you in terms of that it was written on the wall, it's just the way he acted. Like, and that's not even going into the articles where we're not sure how many of the things were true. Like I said, with splitting team meetings into players that want to stay, players that don't, apparently not talking to players one-on-one for over a year, which is just crazy. That's like, surely that cannot be true.
Laurenz, that's what I mean though as well. It's like these articles, I wrote a piece for our website. I feel like we've just been fed lies by all the major outlets this summer. Like Clutch was saying there, you've given him £250 million of his signings. Were they even his signings? Like, were they? I don't know. I mean, the articles now are saying, from The Athletic, they're saying, well, Boehly led on data analysis. Tuchel gave him an initial list of Rafinha, De Ligt, De Jong and Kimpembe, and the ownership delivered none. Now, obviously, there's a debate to be had of whether they were likely to join anyway, of course, but were they even his targets or were they club targets? Were they Potter targets?
I reckon they were just not his first choice targets. And then
I think there's been a massive sort of, and I think one of the reasons why I'm so angry about it is because, we was told throughout the whole summer they want to back Tuchel, they want to do this. Oh, they're in contract talks. You know what I mean? Well, no, you fucking wasn't. You was trying to get rid of him the whole time.
I think they wanted to back him until July. I think in July something started happening where they realized he might not be the guy
Like,
that they hoped he
yeah,
would
but
be.
they made that decision so fast. Oh, we can't work with him. Like, I just don't. I mean, he's gone now anyway. I just don't understand the thought process behind that. Like, it's just
But
for me, it's ridiculous.
Do you not see, Pies, and I'll take that back to Clutch after. Did you not also feel that certain things that he said, certain ways that he acted, whether it's always sitting on the sideline rather than being properly involved, whether it's like at halftime against Zagreb coming out early, like obviously we touched on it at the time, I think, where we were talking about, well, there might have been good reasons for those things. Also, this comment here about Aubameyang. All of a sudden, there was a story that Gordon was a Boehly target and not a Tuchel target. Well, if we now believe that, that means we can never believe anything anymore, because it was literally David Ornstein that said Gordon is most definitely a Thomas Tuchel target. Now, if we can't even believe David Ornstein anymore, then I mean, Python literally needs to hang up his Twitter password, because then
I don't know what
you can't believe anyone. What, like,
bro? At this point, I'm just reading the reports, posting them, and I'll let people decide individually. But this summer's been an absolute mess. I don't know who to believe and what's fed to these journalists at different situations. That whole Athletic article, I replied to someone replied to my tweet saying, "Pies, do you believe this?" I said, some of it I might believe, some of it I don't. And he said, "Well, that's stupid. You either believe all of it or you don't." I was like, well, but some of the situations in there are totally like, I was reading it and I was thinking, yeah, I 100% could see Tuchel doing that. I reckon he's done that. Other things, I was just like, what the fuck? That's obviously not true. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know what the fuck to believe anymore. I just felt like I've been led down a blind alley this summer, and all of it, you know what I mean? And they've got rid of him at the worst possible point. For me, it's just ridiculous. It's like a clusterfuck of situations that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Or some of them make sense and some don't. And then it just leads to one big clusterfuck, and it's just ended up in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do hear that. Someone in the chat said that it's official that this weekend's football will be postponed. Just this weekend, apparently, or at least for now. I've been trying to update Twitter, and I haven't seen that said by anyone, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not. I have no idea. Some people maybe expect so. I don't want to say the wrong thing about this topic, but like I say, she's not my monarch, right? This is not a my manager type thing. This is just I'm not British, am I? But again, though, Paz, do you not think that certain behaviours?
No, I do. And I said this. I said last
on the wall, like it was inevitable at some point, in my opinion.
I said last stream, in the Zagreb game, I was like, I'm a bit worried about him sitting down. Why is he sitting down so much? Like he's losing his mojo a bit. But at the same time, like he looked stressed and I'm not going to say depressed, but he looked like I don't feel like he looked like a manager that gave up on the team. I think he looked like a manager that desperately wanted to fix it and just didn't. I don't know whether he didn't think he could do it anymore or just was so stressed and worked out that he didn't know what to do. And I think that's obviously when that happens, it's like, well, what you have a decision to make. But at the same time, I feel like he so deeply and passionately cared about Chelsea that he would have kept going. He would have kept trying. And
I'm sure he would have kept trying. I don't think he would have walked out. Whether that's reason, pure own pride, love for the club. I'm sure a little bit of a reason is also if you walk, you don't get a payout. And that's an understandable reason, by the way. I'm not trying to hold that against him. If I was in this position, I wouldn't leave. I'm not just gonna refuse £7 million, will I? Like, that'd be stupid. You're not just looking after yourself, right? Like you're looking after children and future generations. But Clutch, let me take it back to you. That's the Tuchel situation. Now, Graham Potter on the other side. Now, there's obviously, as we've discussed in the stream before, even before you came on, there is some reservations to be had by a manager from a significantly, lesser club. There's also, like Pice says, will it even be that different? Now, I believe it will, but is that a guarantee? There's never a guarantee. There was no guarantee it would have been different under Tuchel compared to what Lampard did. All of a sudden, Tuchel came in, played a back three, no one saw it coming. So who knows what Potter's going to do, whether that's Saturday or whenever the first game is that he will be in charge of. Who knows, right? Who knows? But how do you feel about the appointment?
I'm 50-50. I mean, I can see why people are like a little bit worried, but then I pose this question. So we talk about like managers that are Chelsea quality, right? Who do you actually put in that? Are you going to put Jose still? Because I don't think Jose is the same guy. I mean, I'll always take Jose back at some point, but you got Jose.
I would have for the banter. I would have been all here for it. If we all of a sudden turn up with Jose Mourinho today, that would have been hilarious.
I would have
thought it would have gone well. Absolutely not.
I'd have just jumped into a sea of fire and just left Twitter. I think and left everything.
I would have had a great time because, like, just to explain maybe to people what our different feelings maybe is to explain them. So for Pies, obviously Pies is a fair bit younger than me. So for Pies, Tuchel was kind of this because Pies was too young to really appreciate Mourinho's first reign, so you didn't have that extra appreciation for a second reign. Obviously, did you even properly see the Ancelotti days? Maybe not, right? So you had Conte who screwed us over and sued us in the end.
I did.
Right?
I saw the Ancelotti days. Yeah, I was quite young, but I remember it good.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe still being young is the reason why you couldn't quite attach to him as much. I don't know because, well, in terms of football success and everyone loving the guy, it was no different at least to Thomas Tuchel, if not less, right? But regardless, Conte and then he sued us. So your big guy was Thomas Tuchel. And now you're like, I'm never going to properly attach to any manager again. I'm like, I feel that because that's what I felt when we sacked Jose second time round, which was a much more understandable sacking at the time, mind you, because we were 16th. But, and not whatever we are now, I don't even know. But I feel that. But since then, I've done exactly what you said you will do from now on, which is why I probably dealt with things since then a little bit easier. Whether it was for Lampard and the Yerders were like, Lampard, we will never live without him. And now some people do act like that with Tuchel. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter, right? It does matter, but it's like, it's a football club. We will never have the same manager for too long. Am I going to be sad because someone left a year earlier than he would have left otherwise? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to let that ruin my mood. I try to, at least, anyway. But maybe that's a bit of an explanation why, for example, Pice is a little bit more hurt by this than I am, but this doesn't mean I didn't appreciate or love Tuchel. I just maybe had less of a connection. I don't know. But Pice.
A lot of it for me was just being at the games, I think. Like seeing it firsthand. Like I remember going to the games when Conte was, managing the first season, seeing his passion and stuff like that. And then I hated him the second season because I felt like he gave up on the club. And then I also blamed the board because I felt like obviously he didn't really get his first choice targets. But I still hated Conte more because I just felt like he was, I don't know, he just turned into a prick, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tuchel didn't turn into a prick. Well, the media is trying to tell us that, but
exactly.
To us, he hasn't.
With Tuchel, like, it's like I just can't quite get over this yet. Like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, he was running down the touchline, happy as ever against Spurs, and now he's just like, I don't know, man. It's just sad for me. Like, when can we get that manager that can stay the amount of years we want to be satisfied enough for him to eventually leave? Like, I just felt like who gets a crowd surfer? Who gets a crowd surfer? You know what I mean? Like, I know he won the Champions League, and that's special. People try and gloss over that, by the way. People telling me, he's just another Di Matteo. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, you crazy? Like, honestly, the amount of shit I've been seeing.
Definitely not another Di Matteo, that's for sure.
Oh, mate, honestly, and that's just annoyed me more. But yeah, I just think for me it was the connection of just being there at games. Like, I got annoyed with him at certain points for like, I'm a big, believer in coming over and clapping the fans. And I was like, why doesn't he come and clap the fans after the game? But when he started doing that and started like, I don't know, he just felt like, kind of like our dad in some senses during the sanctions as well. Like he was, he was doing everything. He was more than a manager for me. And that's why I feel so sad that he's left. For me, it's more than just boring football. It goes beyond that for me.
Which I understand to some extent. Maybe it's a case of, at some point in life, everyone grows to a situation where they can't always rely on the dad anymore, and maybe that's what happened now. That's why he had to leave.
Hey, look, I mean, if Tuchel goes,
our uncle.
Hey, look, I mean, if Tuchel goes to Spurs, I'll be pissed off, but I'll probably end up turning on him because Spurs are our biggest rivals. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's like I just be going to Spurs. Come on. Yeah, I just hope he stays away from the Premier League because I do have that emotional attachment to him, and I understand those who don't. Fair enough, but I do, and that is what it is.
And it's also fair enough that you are, by the way. And I think that's what people need to understand a little bit. Like people, whether it's in this chat, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's elsewhere, you might not have liked Thomas Tuchel. You might not have been happy with his football. You might have therefore wanted him to get gone. Other people are still allowed to have different opinions. You can think they're wrong or you can think they're right, but they might have even different outside of football reasons, like Pies has just explained. So don't have a go at people. Just let people have their opinions, and we can just share all our opinions. And then we will, at the end of the day, as much as people always make it out like Twitter can control the world, it can't. Todd Boehly is not going to give a flying fuck what Twitter has to say when he sacks or appoints someone. Do you know what I mean? Unfortunately, I mean Roma didn't. He appointed Rafa Benitez. So is Todd Boehly, who's been here for 3-4 months? Like, is he gonna care if Roma didn't after at that time 12 years, 14 years in charge? I doubt it. 10 years actually.
That's the other thing as well. The lack of words they gave to Tuchel, in my opinion. I said to Finkelstein, I said, like, does he not deserve more than a generic statement? I said, like, let us be fans and let us have our opinions as well. Like, if they want to, I know there's rumours of getting the banner out again and crowd surfer. I know people disagree with that, and some people say, well, just let Potter do his job now. But he was like,
didn't we get a Lampard banner out when he goes?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did. He was like, oh yeah, don't worry, the fans. I've spoke to the supporter groups. They can send messages to Tuchel all they want. I just getting the feeling we're starting to be consumers already of these guys. Like, again, more lies. You know what I mean? Back in the summer, oh, we care so much about the fans. Blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, fuck off, do you? Like, I don't understand that. I don't agree with that right now. Anyway. That triggers me.
And I understand that. What that tells me, rather than like for you, where it's like, okay, they just are disrespectful and twats. For me, it's like something must have gone on that we are not yet aware of.
He also said it's generally like, he said, apparently you have to keep the sort of statements for minimum for employment reasons. And I was thinking, like, Roman Abramovich,
a whole video on us sacking him.
Roman Abramovich did like a whole ass, like, Roman actually came out and, he put that statement in the Lampard sacking. Like, I just said to him, I was like, you do realise, like, this is not, this is a Champions League winning manager. Like, fans do have an attachment to him, especially the ones that go at games. He was like, yeah, I understand and all that. And I'm just thinking, like, personally, I just don't think they do, but we'll see. We'll see.
I'm not going to probably highlight it on stream now because it's going to take me too long to get to it. But let me just read out. Thiago Silva has finally, broken his silence on Thomas Tuchel. And he's the first one of the whole squad that said more than a sentence. Kovacic had like 2 sentences, but still. Thiago Silva's statement on Thomas Tuchel leaving is, beyond being good professionals, you and your staff were amazing human beings. It was a real privilege to meet you and to work with you. Thank you for everything, Thomas Tuchel. I wish I could be more helpful. God bless you. And your family. Yeah, see, we love him. Both Tuchel and Thiago Silva. And see, things come to an end sometimes. That doesn't mean I don't love Tuchel now. But in my opinion, things have unfortunately come to an end. Like I say, I think maybe no matter who the manager would have been under these sanctions, Jose, Carlo, Conte, Lampard, no matter who, maybe no one would have survived this. And maybe we just have to accept that. I don't know. I mean, Tuchel Iban puts it here, where he says people also forget Tuchel's record of falling out with boards, Mainz, Dortmund, PSG. I love the man. Are you sure, bro? Your name is Tuchel Iban. Are you sure you loved him? But come on now. Call things as they was more to this. And more
he also just sent you $2 to say I shouldn't be watching football anymore. Jesus Christ.
What? He shouldn't be watching football anymore?
I shouldn't be watching football anymore, apparently. $2.
Thank
you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
I should be watching football. Yeah, maybe Pisey should be better for your heart. But let me also, you know what? I will actually get up that post by Thiago Silva in a second. We also had this super chat a little while ago. He said Thomas Tuchel is no tactical genius. He's just good at the 3 at the back. Found out massively whenever he played a 4 at the back. It was so bad because he couldn't coach that formation. See, I think that's
so wrong. He's one of the best tacticians in world football. Like in league games, in consistent games, maybe not, but in one-off games, like if he goes to like another club and we face him in the Champions League, we're fucked. Honestly, like he knows everything about it. It's like he's a genius at tactics. I don't agree with that at all.
No, I don't agree with it either. Clutch, do you agree with this?
No. I mean, we've seen how good he has been. We've seen him. It was like his first season. He beat Pep like 3 out of the 4 times or something like that.
Yeah.
Like we've seen him do it. It's just for whatever reason. When I said earlier that he's stubborn, it's that second sentence of his 3 at the back was found out and he never changed it. Like, and he never thought about like making a plan to change it. And we went into the season and then we had to like rush and try to do it later. And that's why we see these results happening where people are like, oh yeah, the 4 at the back sucks. But we never properly worked on it during the whole summer while we had a chance. That's where I say he's stubborn. It's because he still wanted to stick with that same thing that's been found out. And it's the same thing Lampard did, to be honest. I mean, Lampard's system, all you needed to do was just pack the box so they couldn't cross. Easy, simple football to defend. Not that hard. So it's not that he's not a tactical genius. It's just, for whatever reason, it didn't seem like he had an idea how to change it. It's not that he can't do it, because we've seen him do it. It's just that for whatever reason he didn't want to do it this time. Maybe he just wanted an entirely new squad. Who knows what was going through his mind at the time? I don't know. But he's not a bad tactician.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, bro. Where I just don't know, if I'm honest. Like I have a lot of different thoughts on this. Where I'm like, yeah, did he not work on it enough? But then again, do we know that for sure? We were not there in training, so we don't actually know for sure if he didn't work on something enough. Like we can assume, but we can't know for sure. Why did it stop working? Is it a case of that he couldn't manage to motivate the players anymore? Is that then on the players? Is that on him? Is that on both? I think it's on both. But the problem is, the thing is that problem occurs at Chelsea on a regular basis, but with completely different managers and completely different sets of players. So how does the same problem keep happening? I asked this question yesterday already, and no one has an answer because there isn't an explanation to this. It's just strange.
I mean, I think the one myth is that you can eliminate player power. I don't think it's possible unless you have a manager who is larger than life like that. Thomas Tuchel is not that yet. Maybe when he goes on and he wins like a whole bunch, then he could become that manager. I mean,
see, I think
if you look at a guy like,
cut out player power if your man management as a manager is good enough, because then
that's what I'm saying.
That's why they've gone with
because I agree with you. If player power comes up, and it always can, every manager is going to be in trouble. If the Man City squad or the Liverpool squad decided they didn't like Pep now, all of a sudden, they could also be big problems for those. But the difference is they don't dislike Klopp and Pep. That's why they won't do that.
Yeah.
So what we seemingly need, and maybe that's where this change is now good, that we go to Graham Potter compared to our usual type of manager that we appointed aside from Frank Lampard, where it's like always go for the wingers, always go for, and not the wingers, winners. Whether that was Conte, whether that was obviously Jose, whether that was Carlo Ancelotti, whether it was even Rafa Benitez, against all the disagreements of the fans, they still appointed Rafa. And all the main managers like when it was Scolari, like he won the World Cup, we need to get him. I mean, Avram Grant is maybe a bit different as well. I don't really know what his success rate before Chelsea was, if I'm honest. But maybe that's what we need now. Maybe we need someone that's not just this pure winner and is so, like, to some extent you'd think we need that at Chelsea, but maybe to stop the problems that we're having, we need that way. It's not winning at all costs, because winning at all costs, those costs will come back to haunt you at some point. Like those, and even Tuchel is affected by that. The cost of deciding Tammy won it. Look how that haunted us. Made us spend 100 million on Lukaku. That went all in the bin. Then we tried Havertz. That didn't work either. Then we signed Aubameyang. Tuchel got sacked 3 days later. Like, if we never sold Abraham, none of this would have happened. Like, those are the kind of things where, like, if you don't freeze out Abraham never falls this move out, then that problem never happens. Am I saying Abraham is good enough to be the long-term starting striker for Chelsea? I don't know, if I'm honest. I don't know.
He's still the highest scoring player that we've had in the last, 5 years? 4 or 5 years?
Well, maybe not 5, because Hazard hasn't been gone for that long, but since Hazard anyway. And it's like, maybe we just need that now, where it's like we have a guy that's good at man management, where he won't even let the players dislike him. It's difficult, but
It's so difficult.
It's very 100%.
And that's where
maybe someone like Graham Potter is more likely to achieve that, because, like we touched on this earlier, right, Pies, when you were talking, what if he doesn't have the respect of all the players? Maybe because of that reason, he needs to find different ways to get them on board. So he needs to get them to like him. He needs to
earn that respect
too at the beginning, but he needs to keep that. Not when things start to go bad, then act differently and they don't like him anymore. So maybe that's
I mean,
but go on.
That's also why last year when I was talking about like having too bloated of a squad, that's also what comes down to it. Because there's always going to be players. Let's say we continue down this path, right? And we'll say Pulisic and Ziyech miss out. They're the guys who they're still frozen out. They're still going to be unhappy. That's still going to cause a rift. So that's why when I say there is such thing as a bit too big of a squad, there is such thing as too big of a squad. Now, Pep can handle it because he's Pep. That's the only reason Pep can handle it. If you look at Liverpool, who do they have on the bench?
Do you not think he can handle it because of the results?
I think he's just good enough and has this pedigree of... let's be honest. He's the best manager in the world, and no one can deny that fact. Even the players are going to respect him for that. You can't...
I think he's such a good talker, isn't he? And that's what I hope. That's what I hope Potter will be, because he's had that. He said he did like an actual course or like a study on man management or something. Like he's got
a degree, a master's degree in man management.
Yeah, like that's crazy. And I think Clutch, what you're saying about Pep is he's such a good talker. It's like if you're unhappy, like I swear that guy could just make you happy somehow. Like I don't know how, but I just feel like he's that kind of guy.
He's also not the guy to stand in a way of like you moving. Look at Sterling. Sterling, it's not like Sterling had like not over what he had like 1,800, 2,000 minutes last year. And he still was like, I want to leave. And they were like, okay, just go ahead.
Right.
He didn't stand in the way of other players.
He's the biggest figure at that club. Full stop. If De Bruyne wanted to leave tomorrow, he'd be like, he'd try and convince him to stay. But if not, he'd be like, okay, bye then. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't cry about it. He's just...
But why can you do that, though? Because of the quality of their squad. That's why they could let Sterling go. Obviously,
they also give him so much power as well. They also give him that leverage to, that he's the guy. He's the figurehead. And it's kind of like what Klopp is at Liverpool. I don't think they're going to sack Klopp because, he is the figurehead. They've not at some point he'll go.
How badly it goes, I'm sure they also have
but I think even he said last night. I think it was a bit of a dig at Todd Boehly. He said, "Well, our owners aren't crazy. They know that I can turn it around. They'll trust me." And I was thinking that's a straight dig. He obviously doesn't like it. Tuchel's left.
But I will say, though, do I believe Klopp can turn it around at Liverpool? I believe that more than obviously, I don't follow them anywhere near as closely as I follow us, right? As I follow Chelsea. But, Pi says you disagree with this, but I didn't fully believe... I hoped, but believe that Tuchel would still turn it around. That's what I wasn't sure on.
I think Liverpool have got better characters as well. I think he's built that squad over a long-term period.
And that, of course, is something that... Yeah. We hope now to try with Graham Potter, but we've never done yet. We've never given that chance to a manager. And not even since Roman. Also in the 90s, we sacked managers left, right, and centre. It's not like only since Roman that's become a thing. But someone made a good example. When Roman came in and Ranieri didn't deserve to get sacked, but Ranieri got sacked anyway. Maybe it's a little bit like this with Tuchel, where it's like, maybe he didn't deserve it. But maybe under new ownership, they just had to do that. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Why do it 6 games into the season? That does my head in, honestly.
I don't think he deserved it now. Even over here in the States, ESPN, Gab Marcotti, the one thing I watched, this is how I found it out yesterday. He was talking about, he's like, how could you give somebody $250 million and not give them at least 2 months, 3 months to figure it out? That's stupid. That's actually very stupid from the ownership right now. And I don't know why. And all the things we're hearing today is that when they bought Cucurella, they knew they wanted Potter. Like, what?
Yeah, he knew everything about Potter, apparently, how he played. And, if you're doing those, why would you just not get him then? You've got him in a day during the season. Why not get him during the transfer window to work on Potter's targets? Is there any, where's the logic? There is no logic. You know what I mean?
And it's just going to go back to that same cycle. You're going to have dead wood. And I'm still going to say Aubameyang because I really don't like Aubameyang.
Aubameyang might be one of those, but I think the rest of our signings are not necessarily affected by that. That's why the whole 250 million. Now, number one, 100 million of that was on defenders that we had to replace because sanctions and the old ownership screwed that up, unfortunately, and we lost Rudiger and Christensen for free. So we had to do that. No matter whether Tuchel was here in the summer or anybody else, or whether we didn't have a manager, we had to replace those 2 centre-backs. So that's 100 million already on that, right? No manager, in my opinion, is going to complain about Fofana or Koulibaly, realistically. No manager, especially the Brighton manager, is going to complain about Cucurella. So, Clutch, what did you say about Koulibaly?
If he keeps playing the way he has been.
Yeah, but in terms of still abilities that he has, no one's going to complain at that in general.
He's a very good player.
Yeah, Cucurella is obviously his ex-player who he clearly liked anyway, so Graham Potter isn't exactly going to be annoyed by that either. Sterling, I'm sure he's going to be okay with. And then obviously you get to Zakaria and Aubameyang, where it may be a little bit different. Even Chukwuemeka, I'm probably pretty confident that doesn't he have a bit of a hint of Bizuma in him, maybe a little bit more attacking than Bizuma is. Can't exactly see Potter being too unhappy with that either, right? But it's difficult because, yeah, of course, if you just put it as blatantly as we spent 250 million and we sacked him 3 days after the transfer window, you're like, well, what the fuck? Or 6 days, whatever. And yeah, that is crazy like that. But if our new ownership, and it's their club now, right? If they want a manager that's properly involved in all the things, and then our manager doesn't like that, then there's no future. We just have to accept that. There is no future then. If our manager doesn't want to do it, and the ownership do want the manager to do it, then that was never going to go well. There was never any hope for that. And that's why I'm maybe a little bit less sad, because I'm like, well, if that's the case, then how did we ever expect that to work? Do you know what I mean? Like it was never going to work. And people say, oh, look, but I mean, Xavi is obviously a Barca man a little bit more than Thomas Tuchel is probably a Chelsea man, but Xavi is half the reason why they got any players. And Tuchel didn't want to be involved in that. It's okay that he doesn't. That's his choice. But in the end, that's way more than the results. The results were bad and we didn't play good football, but I don't think that for the results is why he got sacked. And I think that's why people shouldn't look too much and this is how many games he only got. I don't think that's the point, though. I don't think the reason he got sacked is the results. Now, of course, if we won every game and we won the cups last season and stuff, would he have been sacked regardless of problems? No, probably not. But the main reason for the sacking was still not the results, though. I firmly believe that. And that, yeah, maybe that's just me. Again, let me quickly read out the Thiago Silva. I read it out earlier and I had it on screen for a while now, but yeah. What a statement. Also, weird. Thoughts quickly passed by you. Thoughts that he's the only one that gave it like a longer message? Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I did find that a little bit weird. I'm not going to lie. I think even weirder the ones who just posted a photo on their story. I mean, look, there definitely was internal issues. We don't know who exactly was unhappy. I mean, I wrote in my piece just based off logic and what I could see. I think Pulisic, Ziyech, maybe Kepa, because of, there probably is times where he should have been given a run. But other than that, I can't really think of too many people in the squad that could have not liked Tuchel, how he's being painted to be this villain in the media. So, I mean, who knows what happened behind the scenes? But yeah, I did think that was a bit strange. But yeah, there we go. It is what it is, isn't it? I think also a few of them went in early to training to say goodbyes, and some didn't. So yeah, it's life. You're in a job. Some will like you, some won't, I guess.
And also, obviously, some of them, got to play a lot. Some of them didn't. So, of course, they're not all going to have the same feelings about the guy, I guess. One positive, I mean, someone mentioned it there. Tuchel was happy to sell Broja. Boehly stopped that. Just a little bit silly that he didn't stop the Gilmore one. I still find that stupid. I said it as a joke yesterday. Maybe the reason was that, Potter was like, okay, I'll come, but you have to give Brian Gilmore, come on, boys, give them something. Maybe that was it. I have no idea, but it just seems super strange. Why would you, especially if they made the decision for Potter on the 30th and we sold Gilmore on the 31st? What? Or was it even the first? I don't know. But just weird. Absolutely. Pi's question basically to you said, can't talk. Cedric, thank you for the super chat. Have we got any rumors yet on the sporting director role? Do we? There was rumors that we are quite close to appointing one, but I don't know who it is. We can only guess, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing that was reported by Sami Mokbo is pretty reliable from the Daily Mail. He said that sources had told him that actually so basically it was close, and whoever that person is had input on choosing Graham Potter. So I thought that was very, very interesting, because I think that can't be a Euro. I mean, of course it could be anyone, but I think that nails it down.
Maybe
to
it's
the
just some
English
Swedish Donny.
yeah, maybe. I mean, but I was thinking it probably nails it down to Edwards or Potter, and I was thinking, not Potter, Edwards or Mitchell, the English guys. Yeah. I was thinking, I think young and they're both young, they're both English set up. I think that could quite work. Maybe Edwards had reservations about Tuchel perhaps, and maybe he said, look, I want to work. I'll only come or cut my time short, from vacation if I can work with someone long term. I think it's between those two guys, to be honest with you. But there's also a possibility that it could just be a complete shock. It could be like someone completely different. I mean, I was told the other day that they were considering Giuliano Belletti, but I mean that was a name completely out of the random. So
Didn't even know he was sporting director. When did that happen?
So he was
remember him as a
actually
footballer.
Marina actually. Well, there was rumors in 2018 as well, apparently, or 2016, one of those, that they wanted him back in the club in some capacity, and yeah, there was new ownership supposedly not considering, but who knows? I think it's down between
judging
those
by
English
what the new
guys.
ownership has done since taking over, I doubt they're going to appoint the next player, personally.
Yeah, I think it's
I could be
between
wrong.
Edwards and Mitchell. I feel like it'll be Mitchell because I think he will. It's similar, like he's at Monaco. I feel like it's similar to Potter. He'll jump at that chance to go to the next level,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well,
He's already
like you
been at
said,
Spurs.
You heard or you thought that Mitchell is a huge fan of Pochettino, so and we
Yeah,
decided against Pochettino
that's
before
also
Potter.
that's also I was going to say. Thank you for reminding me, because that's also very strange. Like he was, they worked together. Like if Pochettino was coming in, surely, and this story is even true, then I think you might have a point. I'm not sure. I'm really
It's a
intrigued.
tough one.
I'm really intrigued.
It is a tough one. Pies, I know you need to go. I have basically one more thing that I want us to talk about. If you have to go, no problem. If you can stay for 10 more minutes, then stay. Before that, though, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe. 437 if you're watching. Please do subscribe on the road to 20,000 subscribers. What we should mention, which we haven't mentioned all this stream, even though we've been going for an hour and 42, we've also brought a lot of the staff from Brighton, and we also paid apparently £21 million for that to get number one Graham Potter, but also all of his other staff that he brings with him to the club. That is his two assistants. That is also the head of recruitment or assistant head of recruitment at Brighton. So at least someone for recruitment, which I'm a big fan of. And highlight a new goalkeeper coach, which I'm like, finally, who knows? Maybe Mendy and Kepa will be the best two goalkeepers in the world come 3 months' time, because I personally do not rate Hilario so much. Just look at how what happened at Chelsea since Christophe Lolichon left. Poor Hilario, I like the guy, but I'm not sure if I rate him that much. Do you know what I mean? So that is at least a positive. And also another positive, touched on the Brozier thing, touched on a few other youngsters thing. That is a positive. If Tuchel was going to let them go, also was going to let players go more on permanent deals, and we stopped that, good, in my opinion. We need to give them a chance first before we sell them, in my opinion. But, Clutch, when you hear we got the head of recruitment, and they've obviously been very good at that part. I mean, they signed Billy Gilmore, so. But also goalkeeping coach, you quite happy with those things?
Yeah, I mean, Hilario is kind of funny. I always thought he was a bad goalkeeping coach, and I don't know why we kept him around. I mean, it just seems like, even, I think this was a couple of weeks ago, whenever you guys were talking about Mendy's recent performances and how he's unwilling to come out and claim crosses like he used to be, and now he's just, is that like...
I'll give you a shocker. Hilario, when he was a goalkeeper, was also not very good at defending set pieces and coming out for crosses.
That's not a shocker. But yeah, I think you're going to add freshness to it. Obviously, something we've desperately needed is a talent ID kind of person, somebody who's actually going to be able to identify younger players, younger stars, those kind of things. So, it's good. You need a fresh change up, and I think that's what we're getting.
Nice. I agree. Paisto, your thoughts? New staff that we are bringing in?
Very interesting. I think the most interesting one is probably the recruitment guru, they were calling him. He's pretty much been with Potter, pretty sure, quite a long time. He's quite a young guy, actually, as well. I was looking him up. But, yeah, found apparently Cucurella and Moises Caicedo, probably among others as well, but those were the main two. And I think what I was reading was that Potter focuses on the coaching, and the other guy, I think his name's Cole McCauley, kind of goes and recruits. So I don't know exactly how that will work, considering that's kind of like a director of football, and we're getting one. Maybe it'll be like a triple team or something. I don't know. But yeah, maybe
it's more scouting. Don't you think that's more scouting than director of football?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, true. Maybe more scouting and then kind of reporting to the director of football. But They were saying he reports to Graham Potter, who then reported to the Brighton head of thingy. So I don't know. It'll be a different system.
Do Brighton have such a thing as a proper director of football, or do they?
I think
have
they have.
Potter,
They have
his
like
people, and an owner?
I think they have like executives like Paul Barber, who was negotiating with Todd Boehly about Cucurella. He went on
Mhm.
Talk Sports. I think they do just under a different
true, because
title.
that wasn't this Tony guy that's the owner, right?
Yeah,
And I was
Tony
thinking,
Bloom.
who's this Barber they're talking about? Is he just a? It's just a hairdresser, wasn't it?
But I mean, the goalkeeper coach is interesting as well. And also I think another one we didn't mention was he's also bringing Bruno as well, who's a former Brighton player. With him, he's literally taken everyone, and a few Brighton fans have told me he's quite.
I mean,
an
we
impressive
paid
coach.
£21 million for it, so we better bring everyone.
Yeah, a few Brighton fans are telling me he's quite an impressive coach. So
Okay.
yeah, be interesting.
I wonder what's going to happen to Anthony Barry, considering he's the guy that took the one
I
training
think
session
he's
without
probably going to
Tuchel.
leave, isn't he? I reckon.
Hopefully, considering how bad we've been at set pieces. Bloody
Christ.
get gone, which is weird because 7 months ago we were saying, no, please stay, Anthony. And Remy, to reply to that, he's officially been appointed as head coach, not manager. But Chelsea, also Thomas Tuchel was head coach, not manager. Chelsea, the first, so Jose Mourinho's second spell was the last time Chelsea officially named someone manager. Ever since then, whether it was Benitez, whether it was Conte, whether it was Lampard, whether it was Tuchel, or whether it's now Graham Potter, everyone since then has had the role of head coach. Jose Mourinho was the last one that was officially deemed first team manager. Whether that necessarily makes any difference to their roles is a different discussion. But ladies and gentlemen, it was taking a shot at me. Okay. What shot was he taking at you? But did you not just ask the question, Clutch?
Never mind. He just
Should I
explained
have
it in the
not said
chat.
this publicly?
No, he just explained it in the chat. We're good.
All good. I mean, I would say there is a bit of a difference, but Thomas Tuchel was a head coach, and most certainly this summer had to act like a manager would, not a head coach would. But obviously now that the summer is done and we will appoint a director of football, maybe that's the part, by the way, one last thing. That's the part I find so weird about all this drama with Tuchel. And also the drama that Boehly's so annoyed that Tuchel didn't want to be more involved. Because I'm like, if your plan is to appoint a director of football anyway, do you need that post? Like for this summer, you needed it. Fair enough. But after, do you still need it? That whole super direct contact with the manager and owner, like, do you need that? Isn't the director of football quite literally supposed to take that role? That's what I thought. So I find this a bit strange, but who knows? Anyone want to comment on that? Otherwise, I round this one out. Then. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you all for watching. Clutch, I feel like I haven't really gotten... I would have liked to get more answers out of you, but I can't really think of any more questions, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. My head is a little bit fried. I've been talking about the same thing for the last 24 hours, I feel like, or more. So I do apologize, but I'm sure we will have Clutch back on in the very near future. Now, at this moment in time, I still don't know if we will play Premier League this weekend. I'm not sure when that will be. And I mean, the Queen has passed, so again, rest in peace if people haven't seen us react to this. But like, when will this be announced? Like, it's Thursday. Do you know what I mean? Like, we should probably find out at some point. So, yeah. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round this one out. We have a new manager. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how long this one is. Oh, one other last thing. Pice, do you remember how long of a contract Frank Lampard got when we first appointed him? Do you know that?
Wasn't it 3? Was it 3?
Was it only 3? Okay.
I think it
was
3.
I personally always thought, why is everyone making such a big deal after 5 years for Potter? Doesn't everyone get that? Except Tuchel, of course, but that was different because it was mid-season and his past and stuff. So I thought Tuchel was kind of like the exception to not getting longer contracts. Okay, CFC Satan also said 3 years. How long did, for example, Conte get? How long did Mourinho get? Isn't 5 years? But also, new
Lampard
ownership now, right? We gave all the players 6-7 year contracts. So I personally don't think that the length of contract for Potter is that big of a sign for anything, personally.
So Lampard was a 3-year contract. Not sure on Conte. I think Conte might have been 3 as well, because apparently, did he agree a new contract? I can't quite remember now.
I remember this. After the season we won the league, he didn't extend his stay, but he got a pay rise on the same length of contract. I remember that. After the first season. So initially, I don't remember how long the contract was, but I know after the first season, they didn't extend it, but gave him a pay rise.
Conte was also a 3-year contract. Yeah, I've just seen.
Okay. Tabiso, sorry for butchering your name, says no manager's got 5 years at Chelsea. Maybe, but again, we can't fully judge whether this is a sign for anything because it's a new ownership. So maybe they will give every manager 5 years, right? So we'll have to hold out for that one a little bit. But finally, now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round this one out. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you all. Still 350 of you here. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. Already hit 15. Just got used to saying it. Smash the like button as well on your way out. Please do check out Pice's website and his Twitter. ChelseaFC365.com is his website. And of course, his Twitter is linked down below. Check out Clutch's Twitter as well. I don't think I've put it in the Twitter box yet, but it's just Clutch CFC. And if you come back in the description box yet, but if you come back later, it will be in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, up the Potter. And we'll see you next time.